tricks anyway. And,
so you're there for 1 year.
and then I told Daddy I wasn't going back. He wanted me to go to William and Mary.
Ooh.
Well, I said, well, I'll just go to University of Richmond, West Hampton. No, you're not going there. You'll be coming home all the time. You won't be studying or doing anything. You go to William and Mary at Williamsburg. And I said, no, I don't have a Chinaman's chance of getting in William and Mary. And I said, how about Mary Washington? That was so close to Washington. Well, we'll see. That was a state-supported school. And they were filled up. So then I said, well, how about, shoot, can't think. Madison. It was called Madison College then. It's James Madison University now. And so...
Wasn't Richmond called Boatwright?
What?
Was Richmond called Boatwright at that time?
No, Boatwright was head of the president of the college there for a long time.
Okay. I thought the University of Richmond was originally called Boatwright before they changed
Well, it
it.
might have been way in years ago. I don't know about
It was
that.
in
But it was the
Walton,
Boatwright that was president of the college there. But West Hampton was, the girls' part was a little separate from that anyway.
So you ended up going to Madison?
And went to Madison. And I didn't know a soul going up there, like I didn't know a soul going to the first school I went to. But our preacher talked Daddy into sending me up there because it was a Baptist college. And so when I went to Madison, Daddy found out that I could go for 2 years up there what it was costing 1 year at Virginia Intermont, so he didn't complain about that anymore. And I loved it there in that Shenandoah Valley, and we had more freedom too. We could go to town and all, and you didn't have student government officers.
So is that where you graduated from?
Yeah, in 44. I went the year round. The first year I didn't go.
And you got a degree in
what? Education.
So
I wasn't going to get it. I was liberal arts for a long time, and they shortage of teachers, and they said, well, you need to, you got plenty of time to take those education courses and teach. And I thought, oh, Lord, I didn't want to teach anyway, but anyway, I took it. And then I got this, we got put on campus one time to James Madison, because the soldiers would come through there on maneuvers going to the mountains, Elkin, West Virginia, for mountains. And all the churches around there, except the Baptists, would have parties and dancing and everything. And they wouldn't let you change churches.
What do you mean about being put on campus?
You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go down to the town to...
Okay, you were quarantined. You couldn't leave campus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they wouldn't let us go, and so we said...
Because the soldiers were in town.
We tried to play a trick and tell them, well, Libby was Methodist, and some of them were, but they still wouldn't let us go down there to dance and party with the soldiers. But the students that were going to that church while they were, a student there, they could go down there when they entertained the soldiers. Anyway, and we were walking down the street, just going downtown. We weren't flirting with them or anything, but they kept on, some of them walking behind us and said, here we over there fighting for y'all and doing all this, and y'all so snooty. You're just so snooty just because you're in college and won't even speak. And so we just turned around and said, well, we're sorry, but we're not supposed to be speaking to any servicemen or anything like that. And one of the student government officers, she didn't know, she figured we were flirting with them or something. She reported us. And so they put us on campus, but like I said, we had more fun on campus than we got by with a whole lot of stuff.
Okay, so were you, was it drafted for World War II?
Yeah.
Were you drafted or enlisted?
I drafted.
Okay, so when you were drafted, y'all were just barely dating.
He went to Tennessee to keep them going, see, but they found out where he was and drafted him.
If I'd have stayed out there 2 more weeks, they couldn't have got me.
Why?
I'd have been in there long enough. I was in this aircraft training school.
Oh, in Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee.
Ah, okay.
Three of us from Roxborough went out there to get out going to Army.
Okay.
They got.
And what are you being trained for specifically? Well, what is it you're going to do?
I was going to work on airplanes.
Okay, you're going to be an airplane
They
mechanic.
were teaching us how to put rivets and all that in
Okay.
these planes.
Okay.
But anyway, they got him just like they did my brother from Virginia Tech. He was registered, both two brothers were registered in business administration at Virginia Tech. But they were taking military, too, that. And
So wait. When you get drafted, don't they just send a draft notice either to your last known address here in Roxborough, or doesn't it count period wherever you're at when you're drafted? What do you mean by
Well,
they found you in Tennessee?
Well, sometimes people, they don't find out his home address was Roxborough if somebody didn't tell him where he was.
Okay, so it's not like you just sent a notice to your his father saying where is he?
They drafted me from Tennessee.
Okay, they sent the notice to you in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Ah,
And they drafted my brothers because they were in business administration. If they'd been in engineering or something like that, they could have been deferred. They eventually would have gotten them, but they would have been deferred a while.
so when did you report to Fort Bragg?
When did I report to Fort Bragg? March the 13th, 1942.
Yeah,
When did you get the draft notice?
I got it in January.
right
I
after
think.
Christmas.
42.
No, I got it in February.
So you got 1 month or a couple months before you got a report.
Well, yeah, I was sent to Greensboro, and I had examination in Greensboro. Come back and went 2 weeks later. Went to Fort Bragg.
How long were you at Fort Bragg?
Stayed at Fort Bragg about 2 or 3 weeks.
For basic training?
No, I got basic training in Louisiana.
So you left Fort Bragg to go to.
That's George
Louisiana.
Holman.
So you went from Fort Bragg to Louisiana. And so how long were you in basic training?
In basic training, we had 16 weeks of basic training.
Is this
I didn't
what
take-
part of Louisiana?
What's
What's the name of the place in Louisiana?
Camp Claiborne, wasn't it?
Camp Claiborne was out from Alexander.
Is that northern Louisiana or southern?
It's down in the southern, not too far from Lake Charles.
Oh, okay. And you were there 16 weeks?
I stayed, but I didn't take basic training 16 weeks. I got in the medical corps
Uh-huh.
and got medical training. I was a dentist assistant for a while. Learned how to mix fillings. We learned how to give shots and all of that. You started out learning how to give a shot on a lemon. That's what they use.
On a lemon?
On a lemon.
Not an orange.
No. Well, I was in the 82nd. Medics attached to same Earl Rogers' company. You knew Earl Rogers.
Robert.
And one evening, heard a rumor that the 101st, see, I was in the 82nd,
Down in Louisiana.
was going to Fort Bragg. So I went to see the medical officer that night. When I walked in the barracks, he said, "You heard something, haven't you?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, the 101st will be in Fort Bragg in less than 6 weeks' time. You want to ask me that I want to transfer?" I told him, "Yes, I'd like to get one." So he said, "I'll transfer you in the morning." He did, back to the 101st.
So you came straight from Louisiana back to Fort Bragg.
Yeah,
And then how long were you in Fort Bragg then?
stayed at Fort Bragg about 6 months.
Now when you volunteer for,
I stayed.
Okay, you're in the
over
101st.
that, though.
huh?
I stayed at Fort Bragg, I guess about a year.
But you're in the 101st as a medic?
I wasn't in, I was in the quartermaster, went from the 82nd medics to quartermaster. That was where I started,
Okay.
in the 82nd quartermaster.
Uh-huh.
I asked for quartermaster and got it.
How'd you do that?
Well, I had worked in a store, worked in a stock
Oh,
room.
okay, makes sense. Okay, so you have some experience.
And Collins and Aikman, I worked in the store, stock room there.
Collins and Aikman had a plant back here back then as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, way before that.
Yeah,
Up
they
here,
had,
the main one up here on Main Street.
that was the main plant.
I mean,
So it's been here since the 20s, or when was that plant built?
I don't know
Oh.
what.
They one with 3 guys that was transferred from Fort Bragg to Claiborne in the quartermaster. And Woody Wilson was one of them. I was one, and the boy from Yanceyville out of the group.
Wow.
That's how I got to know Woody Wilson.
So you come back to Fort Bragg for a year,
Yes, stayed there just
And then,
about a year.
is that when you ship out?
Shipped out to Fort Bragg. In September, we got back there in September.
Where'd you go?
England. We were going to Africa, but we were on a British ship. Got out here at St. John's, Newfoundland. They had trouble with the ship. We had to pull in there. Stayed there 47 days.
Well, where'd you ship out of from the United States?
Oh, up at New York.
Manhattan.
No, that's Shanks, New York.
Okay, so you left from up in New York, then you had to pull into Newfoundland.
That's right.
'Cause
Then we come back, stayed there 47 days. They put us on an American ship, brought us back to Canada, resupplied, then went to England. We missed Africa, Sicily, and Italy by about 47 days.
So you went to England.
82nd went to Africa and all.
So you, when Hunter first landed in England, what's the date? What was the date when you landed in England?
What date?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I got it on
Was it in 43? Was it 43?
yeah, about had to be 43.
Okay. Was it summer, fall?
It was in should be around September.
And the trip from Canada to England, how long did that take?
It taken, if we stayed 47, it was only about 7 days, 14, about 50 some days.
50 days on a ship.
More than 50 days, because we stayed in Canada a couple of days.
Yeah, but how long were you on a boat from Canada to England?
7 days.
So it took 1 week to go from Canada to England.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. And in England, you stayed in England until Normandy,
Yeah,
June 6th.
that's right.
And you came ashore, what, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon? When did you come ashore in Normandy?
Normandy, we was out there at daybreak, but we didn't get off the boat until later on.
Did you have rehearsals before that?
Oh yeah, we'd done, that was the 3rd trip.
On the first one, you didn't know it was a real. It was
we
a
didn't know which
drill.
one was the real one until it was the 3rd one.
You thought every one of them were the real one.
Yeah, I was on the glider the other 2. We'd go to the side of the coast and turn around and come back. And on the 3rd go round, I was on the ship. We couldn't carry enough supplies in, and they changed to put us on the ship.
And you knew it was the real deal because this time there was ammunition everywhere.
They had, we put 1 man on each glider from my company. Of course, there's some other men on there, but they were from the infantry.
And from Normandy, where'd you go from Normandy?
Normandy, I went back to England after we stayed there. I don't know exactly how long. To a basic camp, and then we got organized again and resupplied, got more men, and then the next trip was in Holland.
Holland.
Of course, we had one other time we were supposed to go on the glider, but Patton overran the place we were going. We didn't go.
So you landed in Holland by glider.
Yep.
Operation Market Garden.
Yeah.
Did the landing go okay? Did the landing go okay?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Is that the trip where you got uncomfortable and changed your seat,
Yeah.
and a bullet came up through the
Yeah.
from a sniper
That
or
was the
shoulder?
trip.
Okay. So you landed in Holland. How long were you there for that operation?
Oh, we stayed in Holland a right good while. I expect we were there during the Christmas. I know, one Christmas, because there was snow on the ground.
So you come back from Holland. You go back to Reims, France, right?
Come back to France.
So you're in Reims,
Our
France.
home base is in France, then.
Right. Reims, France.
Reims, France.
Reims, France.
That's where Bob come through on the train. Two of my buddies got to see him.
Right. You were back at. You didn't go into town
I
that.
didn't go into town.
You didn't go into town that time.
Of all the people he picked out, happened to be in, well, two there happened to be in my company.
Oh man, what are the odds?
I went, they come back and told me. I went down there, but the train had pulled out.
And then on December 16th, the Germans launch their offensive, and you guys leave Reims, France, what, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Like 5:30 when we got our call.
So you left 5:30, traveled all night till you got to Bastogne.
I've forgotten how long it take to get to Bastogne.
It's about, I think,
fact,
an 8-hour drive in those trucks at 50
I
miles an
had
hour.
to go to Reims and draw supplies all that night.
Uh-huh. And then you went the entire 101st went and straight to Bastogne.
That's right.
And then at Bastogne, were you stationed inside the city or along the woods out at the perimeter?
Well,
Where were you stationed at?
and you mean in Bastogne?
Yes.
Oh, my company and all was kind of in it. I'd say about the center of it.
Middle of town. So your company stayed there the entire battle.
That's right.
Where did y'all go during the bombing? In the basement of it? Where were you?
Well, anywhere you could get. Most of them was in the basement.
Were you? Did you have a right?
It was shelling, and the weather was so that our planes could not fly.
Right. It's
And
cloudy.
couldn't get resupplied, and as soon as the weather cleared up, though, but it was a different story.
Did you have the clothing? I mean, wasn't it with the freezing temperatures? What kind of clothing did you have on?
Well, we had on. It was snow on the ground.
Right, but some of the guys didn't have enough jackets and clothing
No,
on.
they didn't have enough.
Did you?
Yeah, I did quartermaster. We had
Okay,
we the one that controlled them. You know, we were gonna get them.
But you were given. Y'all had to get armed and defend yourself as well, right? Everybody had to have a gun at Bastogne.
Yeah, oh yeah. You carried a gun all the time.
Okay, was it a IMS?
Carbine. I got a fold up carbine. That's what we had.
Is that an
I
M?
got one
was
on
that
that
an M1?
store now.
He's got one at the store
You
now.
seen it at?
Short automatic.
M1,
It's not an M1,
No,
it's a
it's a
short
carbine.
short carbine with the
30.
pull-out handle.
We got the
Full out
fold up
box.
stock. All airborne troops were issued fold up stock carbines.
Now, the whole time he's in Germany or in the service, are you still visiting Roxborough?
Yeah, I come most every summer.
Were you checking up on him, or did you care?
No.
Okay.
I just let us write, and like I said, I was writing to a lot of
A lot of guys.
people, and
I didn't know until recently that Mama had one guy that she thought a lot of that was killed in World War II that you thought a lot of, did you, Mama? One of your boyfriends?
Who was that?
In the tank battalion. He was a guy from Powhatan County that
Which battle did he die in?
on D-Day. I mean, after D-Day, it was D plus something. I forgot what it was.
He was in the Army?
Yeah.
That's
And
a
I
shame.
just dated him when I was home from
But
school.
she had another one too that
Oh, really? Who was he?
half got cut out.
Got cut out.
What do you mean?
He married my stepsister. Yeah, when
Oh, yeah,
came
that's right.
home. Well, he didn't get cut out because I didn't like him well enough that I wanted him to come up that way I was at school, I tell you. But she had come to live with us, our stepsister. Well, she lived with an old lady. See, my stepmother was divorced and had 6 children. She swapped 6 for
Oh,
8.
your father remarried.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, you didn't realize that?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I don't know.
And my stepmother swapped 6 children for 8 children. Her children were farmed out with relatives and different people. She had 5 boys and 1 girl, and her stepsister was a year younger than I. And so when I was going away to college,
When your stepmother married your father, her 6 children were sent.
Had already been farmed
they'd
out.
already
Had already been farmed out.
She
because
came to
had
work, as a housekeeper for
She came,
Granddaddy.
was
So
living
How old were
with
they?
us as 2 years as a housekeeper.
different ages, all different.
The baby was 2 years old when she left him, I think 2 or 3.
Left him.
Because I know the
Well,
saddest
she'd
thing I
already farmed
thought.
him out because her husband had died and she had to make a living.
No,
I
her
guess.
husband didn't die. He was in,
Oh, really?
probably went to jail
Oh,
for
maybe
bad
jail,
checks
whatever.
or something anyway.
When you say farmed out to other relatives,
Well, not all of them, but this stepsister lived, no, she didn't live with a relative.
did you
She-
try to keep them together?
No, she couldn't keep them together because,
I mean, but when you farmed them
No,
out,
it's-
you try to keep like 2 at a time.
well, didn't any 2 of them stay in the same place? The oldest
my
boy
question.
stayed with his grandmother.
Holy
That's
cow.
where the daughter should have been with her
Uh-huh.
grandmother, but the oldest boy was there. And then the next boy was, might have been an uncle or something. And then Bertha, the girl, was next. She was with an old lady that lived not too far from the grandmother.
Did you ever meet up with them later in life?
Well, one time,
Like, did you ever have a reunion?
well, Daddy would take my stepmother up there to visit them sometime during the summer.
Now, when you say farmed out, they were adopted.
No,
They
they
weren't
just,
adopted.
those people just took them
Okay,
in and
took them in and raised them.
raised them and made them work, and of course, sent them to school.
Well, all of them are grown anyway, won't they?
No, they weren't grown. The
Wow.
baby was just about, he might have been 3 years old. I know that people brought him down there to see my stepmother. Well, she wasn't my stepmother then. She was just, a housekeeper. And the boy wouldn't even go to her. Her own child wouldn't come to her because he didn't know her.
He didn't know her.
This was a Martin family. They weren't a relative either, but they didn't have any children, and they wanted to, and they kept him until he.
You gonna be a beauty operator?
And one of the
Lord.
boys came and stayed at our house one summer, but he didn't get along too well with it, so he didn't come back anymore.
I can
And
imagine.
anyway, by the time I went away to college, was going away to college, the old lady couldn't cope with a teenage girl. She wanted to go out, and that old lady
I
was
can imagine.
old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And she was having a rough time and told us she had to go by her rules or else get out. So they wrote to my stepmother, and then I went with Daddy up there when she went up there to talk to the old lady and the old lady told her what happened. And so I said, well, why can't she come? And all my sisters blamed me for getting stuck with her. But, I said, well, I'm gonna be gone, and she'll have my room. I'll just only be there at Christmas and a few days at the time, because I was going to school a year round. After the first year, I wanted to hurry up and get a job and get out from there. And so she was a year younger, but she was about 2 years behind me in school, because I think that old lady didn't send her to school sometime if the weather was bad or whatever. Anyway, she was 2 grades behind me. Or more than 1 grade, she was 2 grades. So she came to live there at our house until she finished high school. And in the meantime, I was dating this guy. He'd been in the Marines, and he got out because of his, he was shell shocked. And he got out, and I was just dating him. My aunt knew him, and just somebody to pal around with. Either when I was home on leave, I didn't ever go anywhere else with him. And so then one night we were going somewhere to a theater or something. And he said, "Wonder if Miss Hill, Daddy had married her by that time, would let Bertha, go out with us." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm sure he would." And so he brought this boy that he knew, and we double dated that night. And then she'd had a job working at Millen Roads in Richmond. She'd gotten a job working there part-time, and so she was wanting a place to board. She wanted to get out too. And so Milton and I had met his aunt and uncle, and they had a nice place, and they didn't have any children, or they'd grown and left home or whatever. And he said, "Do you think Bertha would be happy with Aunt Cora, or whoever she was? I've forgotten now." And I said, "Yeah, I would think she'd be very happy. They had a nice home and everything, and she had a room to herself and all." And so, they accepted her, and she accepted. And then, of course, he'd go over to see his Uncle Andy, so they started going out, and then he got attached to her. So I said, "Well, okay."
Well,
It's
I know
just
from my mother's talking that when he was in the 3 years he was in the service,
Why?
from talking with her, his father was just extremely stressed out from him being over
Oh,
Europe.
yeah. That's one reason he didn't ever get any better, because he worried himself to death about his.
And there's letters, coming back to Richmond or Roxborough. Everybody's getting the letters, or the newspapers listing the letters of the names of soldiers being killed
Yeah.
throughout that whole time.
And I know just for, it was a good while before SP ever came back to the States, they were publishing a list of what outfits were coming in, whether they're going to dock in New York or California or wherever.
Uh-huh.
And I'd watch the list, and I saw where his outfit was coming and go dock in Massachusetts. And I knew he was going to stay. It was the year Thanksgiving time when he
See,
got
y'all
out.
remember, you just talked about a minute ago. So when Pearl Harbor was bombed, where were you?
Oh, Lord, I had just gotten back from lunch. This was when I was in Virginia, in Bristol, Virginia.
Uh-huh.
And, we'd always lay around on the bed and talk and carry on. We were laying there, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of girls were running down the hall, screaming and crying and carrying on.
This is Bristol, Tennessee.
Well, it's the school. Part of the campus was on,
Right.
camp was on Tennessee, but most of the school was on the Virginia side.
Okay.
The middle of the line is down Main Street. Part of it's Virginian, part of it's.
Okay.
Anyway, they were carrying on, and we said, "What in the world is wrong?" And they said, "Pearl Harbor's been bombed," and several of the girls had daddies over there. They were in the Navy and different places, and they were just crying and carrying on. And so they just called, got everybody notified. They had the counselors to come around and said, "We're going to all go to the chapel." And then they had to get them all calmed down. Because some of the girls, they knew where their daddies were, and they were trying to get in touch with them.
You're 17, right? You're like 17 years old, right?
Yeah, I was 17 when I graduated. So.
Where were you when Pearl Harbor got bombed?
When they bombed Pearl Harbor, we were all at the store out there. And there was a convoy heading south, going by when they announced it. And they were all, as soon as they found it out, they were all happy. They were shouting and carrying on.
The soldiers?
Yeah, they were ready to go.
Oh, okay. So this meant no more waiting.
About 11:30, as well as I remember, close to 12 o'clock. when
Noon,
they announced
12 noon. Wow.
Well, old Roosevelt knew they were going to bomb Pearl Harbor. He knew the exact hour and everything, but he wouldn't notify. He done promised old Churchill that he's going to get the United States in the war with England. But they have proven that he knew they were going to bomb it, they wouldn't notify him. I'd shoot him in his grave right now if I could get to it.
Marvin Stewart's brother that lives down here next to where Frankie
Hello?
lived, he was in Pearl Harbor when
Yeah,
it
he
was
was
born.
going to eat breakfast. The
Going
only
to eat
thing
breakfast.
saved him. if he hadn't
Remember
been,
Marvin
Wait.
Stewart, the Indian that set out to store lives,
Yeah.
that died here.
He was,
He was stationed in Pearl Harbor, and he was there when it was
wow.
bombed.
And he just gone to eat breakfast, and
Yeah,
He just
didn't-
missed
he
it.
didn't know.
that's incredible. Okay, so when you come back from the war and you all get married, you go back to working in the store.
Yeah.
And
No, when you came back from the war, you went to Cohen Electrical School in Chicago.
oh yeah, I went there before. Oh, well, he said it after we got married.
no, you got back from the war.
Oh
But his
yeah, I
daddy
went
was sick,
on
you know, all the
electrical
time. His Duke had hospitals and stuff, and well, like
In
I said, he
Chicago.
worried himself to death.
So what were you doing in Chicago?
Going to Cohen Electrical School.
I was getting into electronics. I later sold television. I take a course in television up there.
You
I
weren't
did
planning
my
on taking
own
the store
service
over?
repair. Where?
You weren't planning on taking over the
He
store?
was going to be an electrician because I vowed I'd never marry anybody that had anything to do with the store.
Is that right?
No, I never was interested.
You weren't
in
interested in the
store.
store, and I wasn't either.
But while I was up there, my daddy got sick and I had to come home. And I never did leave no
How long were you supposed to be there?
In Chicago?
Huh?
Oh, I was supposed to stay up there, I'd say a couple of years.
I was going to say, to get you
To get this training.
Get the complete training.
And then were you going to come back or just work up north?
Well, I would probably.
What was your original plan?
I'd probably come back.
And just get be an electrician here in this area?
Job somewhere in this area.
Uncle Sam provided that, didn't he?
Huh?
Did he go to school on Uncle
GI
Sam?
Bill of Rights?
Yeah.
Yeah, they paid for it. So your father got sick and you had to come back here.
Yeah.
How long were you in Chicago?
I've forgotten now. I stayed up there till I was taking house wiring, sign wiring, and got in television. That's where I saw my first TVs up in Chicago. I got where I could work on my own sets until it went to color and I got out. Stopped selling them.
And one of your cousins from Roxborough went out there too, didn't he? One of them,
Yeah.
Georgia Gentry's.
Well, when at school she went to, when she come back here, one of the girls that lived up there married a fellow over here at Lake Ico. She got to meet her again.
Yeah.
Did you know her up at school?
Which one you talking about?
Mrs. Morton.
Morden. No, I
You
didn't.
didn't know her, but she was in school the same time you were.
Well, she was at a different school. She
Oh,
was
she
at a
was?
school on a different hill. Virginia Entermont was on one hill and Sullins was
Oh.
on the other. The Ritzy school kids went to Sullins. We didn't in our class because when they would go to parties, they would have on mink coats and everything and all this stuff. And so I got to know her. She came around selling encyclopedias and telling me where she went to school. She was actually from Addington, Virginia, which wasn't far from Bristol. And said she went to Sullins. I said, oh yeah, I remember y'all. I bet I saw you every Monday. Because we could only go downtown on Mondays and you have to have on hats, heels and gloves, all this dressed up when you went
Have to be
downtown. And so they would have on mink coats, those girls from Sullins when it was cold weather. And they were real snooty, you know, the high society kids. And I'd tell her that. I said, yeah, I remember all of y'all, how y'all did.